Welcome to the Cox Campus year-long journey. And next slide, please. All right. If you have not already done so, be sure to create a membership. It's completely free and always accessible. We'll be sharing resources throughout the presentation in the chat, and a membership allows you to access these free resources. The website is coxcampus.org, and Sally will be popping that in the chat if she's not done so already. All right. And just to tell you a little bit about who we are, here is a simple graphic that illustrates the relationship between the speech school, Rollins, and Cox Campus. Just to reiterate, the Rollins Center for Language and Literacy holds the eradication of illiteracy as its primary goal. We do this by offering live coaching opportunities and providing free online resources so that educators can create the language and literacy ecosystem needed for every child to thrive. Cox Campus, our free online learning and resource platform, allows us to bring our science-grounded approach to a larger worldwide audience. In order to realize Rollins' mission of educational equity, we partner with leaders in the science of reading and child development to inform the courses and resources we offer online. And right now we're going to launch a poll asking about what your role in education is, so that we know who's present in this session. Oh, great. I see some results coming up.
Ooh, lots of, I'm seeing that's describing the role, so many lighting up bars, teacher, instructional lead, coaches, other. That's great.
Yeah, I'm loving the high number of you that are already signed up for Cox Campus. That's fantastic.
And definitely check out the early literacy course. We are going to refer to it and talk about some of the stuff that we'll be learning from it too.
And if you answered no, the link is in the chat for you to become a member of our free online platform with Cox Campus, where some of the resources we'll be sharing today will be found.
Awesome. So many people that are here today. So thank y'all for taking the time to join us as we talk about phonemic awareness in relation to consonant articulation, classification, and instruction. So we'll get started with introductions now that we know you guys and you're introducing yourselves to us in the chat and where you're from. We're going to introduce who's leading y'all's session today. So hi, my name is Rebecca Loera. I am an elementary educator. I had time in 2nd and 4th grade, but majority of my time was in 1st grade as a classroom teacher. I'm also a reading specialist and then top 10 tools trained. I know someone said they work with Deb as one of her facilitators. I'm originally from Houston, Texas, and I moved to College Station to go to Texas A&M and ended up starting my teaching career there. And I moved from College Station to work at the Rollins Center and to serve the mission of literacy and justice for all. That's just a little bit about me. I love being outdoors. I have a beautiful view of all the fall trees right now, and I'm already planning on going on a hike soon. And so these are some of the things I like to do. So it's nice to meet you all.
All right. And I am your co-host, I guess. My name is Ramona Brown. My background is also in elementary education, where I've played various roles. Most of my time was spent as a second and then third grade teacher. I've been a reading interventionist, a reading coach, and most recently, a South Carolina state literacy specialist. I am originally from Denver, Colorado, so I'm far away from home right now. Don't hate it because the winter is on the way. But I moved here to Atlanta from South Carolina to join Rollins in the mission of literacy and justice for all. And in my spare time, I love movies, time with family, and I also love to travel. And I'm so glad you're here. And of course, this cannot be done without our fabulous team. We have Miss Sally Edwards, who is going to be our chat moderator. She is one of our content creators and instructional designers with the Rollins Center, as well as Miss Trina Heath, our tech person. For today. She's with the she is a technical product specialist. So,
and she'll be recording this today, so you can access this session on YouTube later on when we're done.
All right, so here is a sneak peek at our agenda. We will begin with the what is consonant classification and articulation? Why is knowledge and instruction focus on articulatory features important, and how to best instruct and assess student development of consonant articulation. So that's just a breakdown. And our session norms are to listen with an open mind, participate and share ideas. That's how we grow as a learning community. And most importantly, have fun while learning. All right. And so with the fun in mind, we've got this we named it Waterfall, but Rebecca said Chatterfall the other day. And so I kind of like that. So after 1, 2, 3, go, post your answers to flood the chat. And the questions are, how many phonemes are there in the English language? How many letters are there? And how many graphemes are there? On your mark, 1, 2, 3, go. Let's see that Chatterfall going. There we go. Saying 26, 26, 44, 250 graphemes. Yes. Keep them coming, keep them coming. Great, great. So there are 26 letters, of course, 44 phonemes, and there are, did I get that correct? There are, yes, 250 graphenes. All right, awesome.
Thank you for doing the Chatterfall with us. And that's a lot, right? We have 44 phonemes, so 44 sounds in our language. We have 26 letters, and then we have 250 graphemes, and that is what we are expecting our beginning readers to access, and so that they're able to read. So we always, with Cox Campus, with Rollins, we always start with the science. We build knowledge so that we can build best practices. And if you were at the last YLJK3, you may recognize me. Alistair and I led phonemic awareness session. So we're going to do a quick review of that today, since we are talking about sounds. So we're going to quickly review phonemic awareness, what it is and why is it important. For those that maybe have not heard that word before, phoneme. A phoneme is an individual unit of sound. So if I take the part phone, which stands for vocal sound, so not necessarily my phone ringing or a door closing, a phone is a vocal spoken sound. I put it with eme, which means smallest bit. That gives us the definition of phoneme. It's the smallest bit of a vocal sound, and it falls under the umbrella of phonemic awareness, being aware of those individual sounds, which also falls under phonological awareness, our ability to think about and analyze the spoken word. So when we talk about phonemic awareness, we look at why it's important. So like I said, it's the individual sounds and spoken words. It is the more specific work of helping students learn to articulate, notice, manipulate individual speech sounds and words. And this is the type of phonological awareness that is essential for reading achievement. Science shows us that our brain develops learning to read from speech to print. So in order to master the alphabetic principle, readers have to be phonemically aware and strong in those skills. They're an important part of our alphabetic writing system because one must be aware of the sounds that letters represent. And this dives even further, taking some beautiful work from Louisa Moat's Speech to Print book. A singular phoneme can determine the identity of the word. For example, if I have the words built, belt, and bolt, in all three of those words, I only adjusted one medial phoneme, but that changed the meaning of all three of those words and what I'm talking about. So whenever we're thinking about phonemic awareness, we have to understand that it has to be strong for proficient reading and spelling to take place. And it's going to help students develop not only accuracy, but automaticity when it comes to reading. So if phonemic awareness is so important, where does it take place in the brain? And if it's so important, how come I may have a student that's maybe good with sounds, but man, they're just not getting their letters. Is it the only thing we need for reading achievement? Of course, when we're speaking about the deep reading brain, it is a lot more complex than that. So let's dive into it. So this is one of my favorite theoretical models, the 4-part processor. This is something that I like to tell teachers, this should be your lesson plan for fabulous instruction. These represent the 4 regions of the brain that light up as we read. So we have to teach to strengthen each of these 4 processors. So really quick, this is a technique I learned from a colleague. I want you to take your left hand, it may appear mirrored to you, take your left hand and make the surfer dude hands like this. I want you to take your pinky and put it right here at your temple. So take your pinky, put it right here at your temple. When you do that, you are locating where the phonological processor is, also where our sound box is. So the phonological processor is where we store speech sounds. Now, with that thumb that I had you make, so that surfer dude hand, your pinky's on your phonological processor, I want you to take your thumb and touch the base of where your head meets your neck. So you have your pinky here, and then you have your thumb where the base of your head meets your neck. Where your thumb is touching is your orthographic processor. This is the place where we store images of letters and letter combinations. So when those 2 processors are working together, that is how we strengthen the skill to decode. And as you see in the 4-part processor graphic, phonics instruction helps us strengthen our students' phonological and orthographic processors as they work together. So for reading achievement, we do need strong phonemic awareness. We can't have it if we're missing this piece, but it has to be in combination with other skills, such as letter awareness, letter sound awareness, and then being able to attach it and make it grounded in meaning so it can be more sticky in the brain. And so we're going to zoom in to this kind of triangle piece right here. And that is where we get Airy's theory of orthographic mapping. So I have a different graphic for you right here. It's kind of that same one you're looking at, just turned on its side. This is how we translate all the research into practice. Orthographic mapping is that process we use to permanently store words into our long-term memory. Through the mapping or analysis, this process involves connecting pronunciations to the written letters that are represented. and it commits it to our long-term memory. It's not based on visual memory of picture-like forms of words. We need that letter sound knowledge and phonemic awareness. Those are central to the orthographic mapping process. And we combine it with meaning, and that's how we really store it into our memory. The word can become more securely stored in our memory for automatic retrieval. And then with repeated practice, that just strengthens that glue right there. So our brains can go to that long-term storage and retrieve that word for us. So we need all three. They all work together. Think of it like a mental filing system that allows us to access words that have been stored in our memories. And words with meaningful relationships are stored into our permanent memory. I want you to look at this example right here. So here's the definition again for you to see it. If I say the word sock, and you could repeat sock, and I tell you break down sock, I'm going to tap my fingers, sock. You may have the picture of what that looks like in your head because that's meaningful to you. And then maybe I'll tell you, attach the letters to sock. And what you just did, and what you may be asking your students to do, is the orthographic mapping processes. Our pronunciation of sock is glued to the letters that spell sock, and additionally to the meaning of sock, which makes it what is that automaticity, that automatic retrieval, and that's what we want our students to get to in their reading. This Aries theory of orthographic mapping connects directly to Aries phases of word reading development. This model conceptualizes word reading into these 4 phases listed up here. Each stage illustrates how word reading develops for typical children between the ages of 4 to 6. And the skills that you see highlighted right here are the skills that are related to phonics. So this also demonstrates how phonemic awareness skills, alphabet knowledge skills, decoding skills, and orthographic mapping are crucial foundational skills for children to develop automatic sight word recognition. So just as an example, if I have a student here in the pre-alphabetic stage, and you might recognize this kind of example, how many of you may have seen students where they tell you, look what I wrote, teacher, and they bring you something that looks like this, and you're like, oh, baby, that's so great. Can you read it to me? Can you tell me what you wrote? This is the stage where students may recognize general print concepts. Typically, they'll recognize logos. So if they see the big red and yellow M, that's McDonald's. This is where if you have students, they would be in the pre-alphabetic stage because they're possessing letter sound correspondence yet. Let's say that student repeating phonics instruction, you are drilling onto those phonemic awareness skills, and then they get to the early alphabetic stage. And this is that same word that was being spelled before. I want you to try to be thinking as a teacher analyzer, I wonder what word this child is trying to spell. They went from here, they went to here. They're showing me that there's some letter sound correspondence. Maybe they're matching some sounds to letters. I'll give you a hint. The closest one is the U in the middle. So I want you to be thinking, I wonder what this word's going to be. Well, let's say I'm working more with the child on their letter sound awareness, their phonemic awareness, their decoding skills, and they get to the later alphabetic phase. So now you may have a better guess of what they're trying to spell. They're using their phoneme graphing correspondences to orthographically map letters, sounds to letters, and they're beginning to recognize words with more automaticity. We can also see that they're using their phonemic awareness skills to segment and blend as they're mapping those letters onto it. So you may have a good guess on what they're trying to spell. I'll give it to you right now if you haven't gotten it. We move to the consolidated alphabetic phase. This is the money pot. This is where we want students to be achieving readers. We want them to read with automatic sight word vocabulary. Be careful with that word sight word now. I know we're going to talk about it later too. Remember, whenever I talk about sight words, I'm talking about words that are orthographically mapped in our long-term memory, not just words that I've memorized visually. But this student is using that orthographic mapping. They're linking letters and sounds together, and they got the digraph and they got the blend or trigraph that's right there. This is the goal for our students, and this is demonstrating the importance of, yes, phonemic awareness, but yes, letter sound knowledge as well. We need both. And this summarizes it all up. If students can distinguish different phonemes within a spoken pronunciation in long-term phonological memory, they will be able to anchor the spelling to that pronunciation and additionally to meaning of that pronunciation. So I like to say, think of a phoneme, a sound, as a parking space for a letter. We are going to be talking about consonants, classification, articulation today. And what is really important to understand, and we're going to be broken records repeating this, is that children learn from speech to print. We have to have that articulation and sound of consonants really strong, very accurate, so that we can better attach and make that sticky for the letter to go onto. So let's go and let's start talking about consonants. I'm going to make a statement. I want to see how y'all feel when I say it. What do you think when I say, a consonant is not a letter? That could be like, what? Like, what do you mean a consonant is not a letter? What are we teaching our kids? Well, I'm going to challenge you a little bit. I want you to remember a consonant is a speech sound. So what does that mean? A consonant is a speech sound. It's not just a letter of the alphabet. We represent consonant sounds with a letter and letter pattern. So for example, the sound, that's a consonant. And we represent the sound with the letter F. So remember, a consonant is a speech sound. Why is that? The reason for a consonant is because there's something blocking it, either my tongue, teeth, or lips. And when I refer to that, I'm talking about the articulation of that phoneme. So we look at MVP. These are the 3 categories of articulation. That stands for manner, voicing, and place of articulation. So keep this in mind. Keep that statement I said in mind when I said a consonant is not a letter. A consonant is a speech sound that we represent by these lines and curves that we call letters. So let's dive in and let's look at what is meant by manner. This is a resource that Sally is going to share in the chat. This is our beautifully finalized, updated from our consonant classification articulation chart. This is part of the classification page, and this describes what is the manner of articulations in these different consonant sounds. So the manner is how the lips, the tongue, and the teeth are working, and how are they directing the sound through my vocal tract and through my nose for some of them. So let's take a look at this first one right here, a stop. So letters like, or sounds like b, p, d, those are being stopped for a very short period of time, and we can feel b, p, d. I can feel my teeth and my lips blocking it. We move on to nasals. This one, I'm going to have you do it with me, a fun little activity with me. I want you to put your fingers on your nose. So cover your nose a little bit. I want you to say the B sound while covering your nose. B, B, B. It's fine. Sounds normal. Now, I want you to say the sound. And now say it while covering your nose. It kind of is uncomfortable, isn't it? I have to really struggle. Why is that? Because the and the sound are all nasal sounds. That air is traveling through our nasal passage, and that is how the sound is being produced. We also have a fricative, so airflow is stopped, and then it's slowly released, so the j and the ch. Fricatives, letters such as z or z, there's a narrow space, whether it's between my teeth and my lips, whether it's between my two top and bottom put together, air is being forced through that narrow space. We also have glides such as airflow is not being obstructed, and those are continuous sounds. And then we have our liquids. So those kind of float in the mouth. Letters such as l and those just kind of float in the mouth. Something I do want to point out, you may notice that the consonant sound is not listed on here. So what the letter H is represented by. So the letter H is kind of one of those rule breakers when it comes to being classified in a specific way, because there is nothing blocking it. It is like a puff of air coming out. So I just wanted to point that out in case you notice, like, where's H? So it is a little bit of a rule breaker because there's nothing blocking it. And so what do we mean by voice and place? Well, I'll start with place. That's just where is in the mouth the sound taking place. So like I said, those nasal sounds are happening right here in our nasal passage. And then maybe they're happening like g, g, right here in the back of our throat. Maybe they're t, 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 happening right here between our teeth. So that's the place. Where is it occurring in our mouths? And then voice is whether our vocal box is activated. So I want you to put your hands on your throat. And I want you to say the letter B, B. We'll go back to our B, B example. Say the sound B, B. I can feel a little bit of vibration right here. So the sound B is a voice sound. Now I want you to sound out the letter P, 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 P. Keep your throat right there. P, P. I don't feel any vibration. When I really think about it too, that B, B, and that P, the manner and the place are the same. It's right here with my lips coming together. But the difference is whether my vocal box is activated. Maybe you have students that whenever they're spelling or they're saying a word, they mix up B and P. We're going to look at our consonant articulation chart that shows this and displays it beautifully. Like I said, this is the most updated version released 2022 from Cox Campus. It is a free resource to you. I think Sally shared it in the chat already. You can go on the website and download it as well. This is a beautiful teacher resource so that you can be aware where is the place that this sound is happening in, and then all those classifications I talked with you about before up here. So what I do want to point out to you, I'm putting circles around these letters. I want you to be thinking, I wonder what makes these letters special. Why do they have to have circles? And you can type that in the chat too. Why do you think, what is making it, why is it important for these letters to be noted that they're in the same together? Also, just as a note, the volume sign symbols voicing. Maybe bars, like maybe they're stop sounds, they're not continuous. I hadn't thought about that one. That's a good guess, Barbara. I'll tell you. So these are sounds that the place of articulation is the same. The only difference is whether the sound is voiced or not. So how many of you had students, instead of writing the word, I had one example the other day. I was doing an assessment and I told the student the word is bag and they said back. I said, no, the word is bag. And they did b-ack. And I said, g, like put your hand on your throat, g. And so they weren't realizing that they were not activating their vocal box when it was needed. So this is an example. You may see this in student writing too, of things that can be easily confused with or mixed up just because of that, articulation piece. So why is that important to know for our students? That helps you. That's an analyzing piece of why they could be pronouncing something wrong, writing something wrong. So using items such as mirrors to let them see and feel what their mouth is doing when making the sounds, these consonant sounds. Sounds disappear into the wind. So let's give our students something tangible to refer back to when learning consonant letter sounds. And also things like a tissue, where some of the sounds have puffs of air and some don't really release a lot as much air. So these are tangible ways for us to show our students, allow them to see, feel, touch how these sounds are created, especially in times we're coming out of COVID, y'all. Kids have been seeing this for years. So they really now more than ever need to see what the mouth is doing to make these consonant sounds. So I'm going to put you under tricky consonant review. I didn't want to do all the consonants, but I want everyone to go ahead and unmute And we're going to go review some consonants. I have them in the sound lines, also called virgules, but I call them sound lines. Whatever sound you see on the screen, I want you to make that sound, okay? If you're able to unmute. And I want to hear how well we know our consonant sounds. So let's get started.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Awesome. So be careful with this one. This one I always like to tell people with. So it's not like otter. So the W sound, keep your lips put together. I tell my students like I'm a pigeon. Practice making that sound. Like in water. Good. So make sure to clip that sound. So I tell my students if they're saying pa, get your scissors, we're going to clip it. We don't want to add that schwa at the end of it. Remember, these are sounds, not letter patterns. Good. Like infusion. So this would be a little tricky too. I've had the question, what's the difference between just spelling a W and then WH? It still can make the whoo sound. It's kind of like that joke, like cool whip, you know, where he's enunciating cool whip. That is kind of what's happening. It's very discreet because we do it so automatically. It's like a little bit of puff of air is coming out. You can barely feel it. If you really slow down, do it in slow motion. The next one. Nice. Flip that sound. Make sure not to put that ing that has the I in it. I would tell my students, tilt your head back and do, it sounds like bees buzzing. Sounds like bees are around us. I'll tell you, the next one's going to be the voiced version. So it's voiced. So put your hand under those. Good. I love those clip sounds I'm hearing. I love that clipped. Yes, not guh. You might have to guh. Awesome job. Great practice. So just watch out for these tricky phonemes. We have X that says two sounds. It says k. So put together. That's two sounds. QU put together is two sounds. Ooh, like in queen. And the letter U can say you, its name, you. It can also just say ooh. So the long U has two different sounds. So be aware of that in specific words. Let's see. We're going to watch 1 minute of a lesson. Now that I've talked your ear off about consonant articulation and the place of it, okay, what does this actually look like to work with a kid on this without getting out of control, right? So we're going to watch this 1 minute of a Cox Campus Rollins Center teacher, Atlanta speech school teacher. She's practicing introducing and working on a letter, and she's focusing on MVP. So as we watch this 1 minute, I want you to take note of what the teacher says and does, what the student is doing, and then what materials are they using in this video.
Right, let's do one more. Let's make this sound like in fire. Look at my mouth. Do you notice how my teeth go down on my bottom lip? And then I'm pushing the air out. Look at your mirror and try it. Are your teeth biting down on your lower lip? Try it.
It doesn't really hurt when I'm doing it.
Try it and say fire.
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 Fire. Fire.
Fire.
Fire.
That one's hard, isn't it? Let's try the word fox.
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 Good. Yes, your teeth came down on your lip. Excellent. Good job, Betsy.
We'll take
some
time.
Oh, sorry. Let's reflect on the lesson that we just saw. I want you to think about what language was the teacher using as she was working with the student on the letter F. And please type in the chat. What language was she using? What were some of the things she was referring to or saying when working with the student? Oh, I see. I hope I'm saying this right. Kanisha, we see she's using mirrors. Oh, Barbara, yeah, she was telling her bite down on the top of her teeth to make the sound. I love that you did that with your pre-Ks. Tanya explaining how to make the sound by letting teeth touch. Yeah, so she was explaining, right? And the student was just copying what she was saying. So she was listening to her instructions. And like Kanisha said, she was looking in the mirror. Yeah, Rhonda, she told her and was showing her what to do. She was modeling it, not assuming she knew how to say the letter. And she was looking at herself in the mirror doing it. So awesome reflection on that. I hope you gained a lot from that classification articulation. It's so important for our kids. Like I said, sounds come and they go. As I'm speaking right now, they're traveling in the wind. So let's give our students something tangible to focus on: their manner, their voicing, their place of articulation. For some kids, this is really paramount for them to know how to make these consonant sounds. So with that, I'm going to refer to my colleague, Ramona, and she's going to dive deep into more instructional activities for consonant strategies.
All right, thank you, Rebecca. Now that we've got the background for the theory, got some information about the manner, voicing, and placing, we are going to look at how we can bring these theories and brain science to life in the classroom. So first up, I'm going to read the words in Black, and I'm going to ask you to unmute and read the words in red. All right. This explains that we learn to read from speech to print. So let's go ahead and unmute, prepare to read the words that are in red while I read the words that are in Black. Ready, go. Reading is
not a natural task.
And children are
not biologically prepared to do it by evolution.
Awesome. Unlike spoken language acquisition. Thus, teachers must be aware that many of the
reading steps
that they take for granted because they are expert readers and have fully automated and non-conscious reading systems
are not at all obvious to children.
Massive changes are needed
at the phonological and level
before children master
the skill of reading.
Awesome. So once again, this quote from Dehan is explaining that we learn to read from speech to, anybody tell me, but finish that phrase?
Speech to print.
From speech to print, exactly. This represents a shift in the traditional approach where students are taught the letters of the alphabet first and then the sounds. As we learned from looking at the four-part processor, it highlights the fact that learning to read begins with speech, that phono or sound portion, and then it's translated into print through our orthographical processor. All right. Remember, we must strengthen all four of the processors. This requires a multi-sensory approach, as is shown here in this diagram. The more we engage the multisensory approach, the more the pathways in the brain are formed, and the more strategic those skills become, and in helps of creating a more fluent reader. Okay, so on the left here is some sound wall implementation information. Sally is going to drop the link in the chat to this resource. It provides explicit shifts in instruction that we need to think about as we begin to shift our mindset from print to speech to print. Let's think about the traditional word wall. So you'll see that here on your right. I want you to focus in on K. Under the letter of K, you may recognize a familiar or traditional approach, which is where the words are posted according to the first letter or of the word. So let's key in a little further and look at those first two words. The first word is no, and the second word is new. Can someone unmute and tell me why that might be tricky for a reader who's learned that the letter K represents the sound?
If they're looking for the word no or new, they're looking for the n sound and not the k sound. And so they're not going to be able to find that word on the word wall.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so one thing I know that was traditional, if a child came up to you and asked you how to spell the word new, as in I knew something, you might say, well, look up on the word wall. And if they are referencing what it sounds like, the beginning sound, they're going to be totally confused. So that is another strong reason to connect the speech to print. All right, and this is where a shift comes. If you notice, this is called a sound wall, and the sound wall. All right, thank you. All right, so the sound wall is different in that it shows the mouth placement for the sounds. You can also connect the words to the sounds using a sound wall. It also highlights the difference between sounds in terms of their placement in the mouth. So all the things kids need to know about how to produce these sounds can be represented by a sound wall. And if you notice here, these are very kid-friendly pictures to help assist that. All right. So let's dig further into some of the benefits. Here are other connections to how sound walls provide support for all learners. They connect phonemes, sound, to graphemes. Sound walls can be integrated with any existing curriculum. So they are curriculum agnostic. They provide support with medial sounds, which are the most difficult for students. I've been doing a phonemic awareness assessment this week, and the medial sounds invariably is where students struggle the most. But with help of the pictures of how to place their mouth and thoughts about how it feels, that helps to overcome that common barrier that readers struggle with. Sound walls also can be used to help diagnose and correct language articulation problems. Again, two students that I encountered today, as a matter of fact, would really benefit from having a sound wall in their classroom because their teacher could help not only figure out why they're confusing some sounds, but also help them create that muscle memory about how their mouth looks and how the sounds feel as they're producing them. Because as Rebecca reiterated, once you speak a sound, those sounds they disappear. But with these sound walls, it gives them something concrete to refer to help them improve any problems they may have with speech. And then lastly, sound walls allow teachers to provide prescriptive feedback. They can do so by asking students to think about what are the sounds and how does that feel in your mouth? Once again, giving them that concrete experience. Okay. So next up, we're going to talk about alphabet knowledge. Go ahead. So as we look at alphabet knowledge, we've talked about print awareness and phonological awareness. It's time to discuss our last early literacy domain, alphabet knowledge. Alphabet knowledge is the knowledge of letter names, letter shapes, and letter formation, and it consists of several skills. There are many elements of alphabet knowledge. We're going to take a deeper dive into letter discrimination and letter writing for this session, but you can learn more about the other ones in the early literacy course. All right, so this is a tool that can be used in the classroom. It's called an alphabet arc. It can help with letter discrimination and reinforces the speech sounds using the following process. You can ask two types of questions. Show me the sound. That helps students to identify the phoneme. Pointing at the letter, what sound is this? That also helps them with production of the sound. And then to extend this learning, once students are ready, you can use those same two lead-ins and have them write or print in these upper boxes the letters, and then cut them out, practice putting them on the blend line, and then have them practice writing them down below. All right, so letter writing. As demonstrated by Erie's phases, the development of writing happens in phases. Awareness of the phases can help determine what the student knows, what they need, and what they are ready for. So 3 instructional phases that you would see here with letter writing are imitation, copying, and independent writing. Another way to reinforce the letter writing is using consistent paths of motion. This chart here gives you commands or motions to teach children how to write a letter. So looking at the letter P that we have here, if someone is brave enough to come off camera for me and follow along as I go through this path of motion. So we would start with our large, I gotta back way up, I'm too close to the camera. Starting with our large motor skill. We might tell the children, all right, we're gonna need our muscles for this. Get your arms up. Ready, pull down, up, and around. And then to go to the small motor skills, you may have them then repeat that same path of motion, pull down, using their finger on their hand, and up, around. okay? And then to go to the even finer motor skills, you would then have them use a pencil to reinforce that. So that helps you to go through the progression that students need in order to be able to form letters. All right. And in addition to those that I've already shown, here are some resources that provide intentional practice, but because we know that in order for orthographic mapping to take place and learning to read, there has to be a high degree of intentional practice. These activities here provide intentional practice that reinforce letter discrimination and letter writing. These are adaptable for independent practice, and they can be found on Cox Campus. And I think Sally just dropped the link there for you. So please make yourself, make these resources available to yourself. All right. So, all right, go ahead and click. Another way to make this multisensory, remember when we initially started talking about this, we were talking about how important it is to use multimodal activities to reinforce. So another important thing to consider is to include pictures when doing phonemic awareness activities. This practice helps with the orthographic mapping because it attaches meaning to the spoken and written word. Thinking back to how we started the session, looking at the 4-part processor and those essential parts that ensure that orthographic mapping takes place. All right, now it is time for a review. I want you to think about how that felt and if you've done that before, and how will this help students? And also think about when some of these instructional strategies might be important to use in the classroom. And for this part here, I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic for me and repeat and complete. Children learn to read, unmute and repeat and complete. Children learn to read.
Children learn to
read.
I heard it. Someone said
from
children
speech to print.
From speech to
print.
All right, excellent. Thank you. So just to wrap up on this section here, in summary, for most students, instruction takes only a few minutes a day to make a difference. The goal is strong phoneme segmentation and blending by first grade. The oral production of sounds and words is critical, and these 6 points here are the keys to achieving that goal. Especially encouraging that mouth awareness, remembering that it's sounds before letters because it's speech to print, using multi-sensory engagement, touch, move, say, modeling, I do, we do, observe, the teacher observes them putting those principles into practice, and then give immediate corrective feedback, and transition to letters when students are ready. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my co-host, who's going to, I'm going to leave you with this thought. Take a moment to read the quote that is on the screen. I'm going to leave you with this thought. Our early readers often think reading is somewhat magic. that people just know the words. So teachers are always saying, let's figure it out. Instruction should be focused on reading words, not learning words. By taking that approach, we limit what children can be able to do with the correct instruction. Thank you. Now to Rebecca.
All right, so it's the time has come. It's already been crazy, an hour. That went by super fast. But I want you to take the time to reflect on any big takeaways you had on this session about consonant articulation, classification, instruction of the alphabet. I want you to think about what is something that already squared with your previous beliefs when coming into this session today. And please share in the chat. Reflection is such a powerful tool, and we know that very well in education. So something that already squared with your beliefs. What questions may still be circling for you, and what wonderings do you still have? And then what are 3 big takeaway points that you can keep with you from today? So I want you to think about what you've just heard over this last 55 minutes and share with us in the chat too anything that squared with what you already knew with consonant articulation and instruction. Any questions you may still have, we're just a chat away, or Sally can help with that too. And then 3 points that you'll take away from today. So as y'all are reflecting on that and sharing in the chat, there will be a webinar poll that Trina's going to release for us. So before we wrap up, we'd love to hear your responses on a quick poll about our session today. And while you're answering these questions that pop up for you, perfect. I'm going to go ahead while you're answering those questions. We have our next session, K3, for a year-long journey, and that's going to be all about vowels. So vowel classification, articulation, and that will be happening November 17th from our amazing colleagues from here at the Rollins Center. And then let's keep the conversation going. You know, the science of reading doesn't stop. It's something that's being continually learned about. And let's keep the conversation going on what literacy and justice for all is. We forgot, Ramona. I was very, very excited when we heard this. The consonant articulation and chart that we showed you, like I said, that's already on Cox Campus. It's available to you for free. And in development is a Spanish phoneme articulation and classification, which will be beautiful for our DLLs. Additionally, coming in early, we're allowed to announce this, we asked. We can officially announce that the Cox Campus sound wall, what you saw, that consonant sound wall, that visual for students to put on a teacher's wall, the Cox Campus sound wall will be finished in about early 2023, a couple months from now. And of course, in an effort to break down the paywall, because the science of reading is for everyone and reading belongs to all of us, it will be completely free. So be on the lookout for that Spanish phoneme classification chart and for the Cox Campus sound wall early next year. So that's all we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's a pleasure that you're spending your time with us to deepen your own knowledge that we can transfer to practice for the betterment of our children and for them to learn how to read. So thank y'all so much. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask us or type in the chat or anything. But thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
And then just a reminder, this will be posted on Cox Campus YouTube channel. So if you want to refer back to it, or you have someone that needs this information, you could forward them that link. And all the previous sessions are on the YouTube channel as well. Thank y'all. Oh, that's awesome, Barbara. Yes, SOR courses, and they're all for free.